So, welcome to the Matt Return podcast. I'm Chazzy Boki here with my good friend Mike Robinson. How you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, good. Enjoying our weather. We're actually in a little bit of a mini heat wave, so it's really enjoying it and not enjoying it at the same time. I knew what it was like in Aberdeen. You never really know what to wear. Like I've got a t-shirt, but I've also got a jumper just in case, and so
Yeah,
so it's always like that sort of hesitation. But yeah, doing good though. And so
that's good.
yeah, maybe we should address the elephant in the room. Talk about football. It didn't quite come home, did it?
Oh, you went there. Oh, no, really. I thought I got away with that. No, it really didn't. It didn't. But in my defense, I am not like said arrogant England fan. I was quite humble about the whole situation. I thought I'm just going to wait because at the end of the day, we are playing Italy and they are no joke. And I don't know, as an England fan, I've been through so many ups and downs with them, penalty shootouts, Gaza crying, Southgate missing in '96, you name it, I've seen it. And I just had it in the back of my head, I'm like, are we really going to win this? I don't think so. No matter how much you sing, it's coming home. It just, yeah,
Well,
not happening.
well, to give you a bit of context, Scotland, we don't really have ups, so we got there, which was great.
Yeah, that was it. At least we were there, and to be fair to them, they played a very good game against England. And if anything, it kind of spurred England on because we realised like we need to up our game because we were poor that game, very poor. And Scotland, and that's not taking anything away from Scotland because Scotland made us play poor. They put it on us, and I was quite impressed with how they played. So it was, I think it kind of was a bit of a wake up call. It's all good though. We beat Germany 2-0 and Jack Grealish did the magic, so I was happy with that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as a Scotland, happy for Italy for sure. It was a great game. Italy were just like early goal from Italy and England, but then it's just like England were just constantly. It was so tense, and watching it with my wife who's English is like tense, and then people's stories is just tension for like. Oh yeah, it was a great game though. Sad for England as well, and also sad for the players because it's just like what you don't need is young players getting aggro for representing their country, and like the amount of comments and stuff. Even so soon after, like they've just been at the biggest proving ground in a large stage, and one of them's not even 20, and the pressure to put on them, and like that isn't cool, and I really feel sad for them that they stepped up. They had the honor of representing England, yet they also represented a target for disgruntled people who took the thing out of context and think, well, in the last 60 years, that's been the closest or the second closest to capturing national gold, and that should be the focus rather than young players.
Not only was it disgusting what they did, and I'm glad it was only a small minority. Like I'd rather it wouldn't happen at all, obviously, but the way that the fans came out to the Marcus Rashford mural and like just shared all the positivity was great. But another thing as well, like you said, it first time in like 55, 60 years where we've actually got to a final, and Saka was arguably one of the best players throughout the whole tournament, and Sterling as well. Sterling probably was. And for them to say what they said, or it's just disgusting. It's just like I was so angry when I saw that. I thought, really, after everything those lads have done for our team and football, and and that's how you want to treat them. I just thought they're not fans. They need to really be harsh with it. They can't, like, I get the whole kneeling down for the Black Lives Matter and things like that, but they need to make punishment severe for these people. You can't just go let it go. It's a joke. You can't be having that. and yeah, it really boils my blood when they do that, because it was just, yeah, not great. So
Yeah, and it's the first time in almost 60 years, but I was actually informed by my wife the other day that I think it was England ladies, I think it was in 2010, 2011, something around that, got to a final. But this is the first I heard of it, so so apparently not the first time in 60 years, but the first time for the males in 60 years.
Okay, I must admit I don't follow women's football, so that's news to me as well. But,
that was news to me. Yeah.
Great. Maybe I should. If they get to the final more regularly, you know.
Double down the efforts. Come on.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, so the past weekend was a dramatic one. Football didn't come home. Then UFC 264 was, I think I read the other day that it had the second highest pay-per-view sales in UFC history.
Not surprised.
But with an anticlimactic ending.
So what people need to realise with McGregor is, we've spoke about this at length before. He brings eyes to the sport. It's a bit like Floyd Mayweather. People pay to watch him lose, they'll pay to watch him win, but everyone watches those fights. When he walks out to Notorious, it's quite epic. Like, regardless if you dislike him or love him, and he does bring a lot of energy to the sport, and he has. I'm not even like a McGregor fanboy. I just appreciate what it is for what it is, and he literally does bring it up another level. Everyone tunes in. Hence, the pay-per-view numbers for all his fights are high. They're massive. And what he did with Floyd was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the ending was, it definitely left a bit of a bad taste, I felt, because now we don't really know what could have been, because the way he came out in the fight was like he was in Poirier McGregor 1.
Yeah.
He was on the toe.
He
was kicking. The range was different. He wasn't heavy on that front leg like he was in the second fight, where he was clearly trying to box Poirier in that second fight, and Poirier just kicked the absolute hell out of his calf, which is a great tactic and worked wonders. But yeah, the third one, for the first, minute, he had the better of the exchanges on the feet. And then I don't know why he went for that guillotine. I'm not really not really sure on why he did that. But then this is what I was saying earlier about the difference between the fanboys and how they obsess. I heard them saying, "Oh, Poirier won that round 10-8," and I was like, "Hold on a minute." I was like, "What fight were you watching here?" Because McGregor was sticking his tongue out at him and pulling him down and hitting him with elbows himself. It wasn't like it was complete dominance.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd score the round 10-9 to Poirier because he did have top position. He did control him for the majority of the round. But to say that it was a 10-8, it just baffles me, to be honest.
Yeah, 3 of the judges scored it. Two out of 3 of the judges scored it 10-8.
Yeah, I find that bizarre personally, but what I thought was interesting though was his video today. Well, Kavanagh touched on it in his interview as well. He was the one who brought it to light, I think, about the stress fractures in his in his shin, which obviously played a massive part in the outcome of the fight, because that's what ended it. Which was really unfortunate because I was really looking forward to round 2.
Yeah.
And to me, it's not really a conclusive ending. I still feel like what could have happened, could have been different in round 2, because the start of the fight gave me glimpses to McGregor Poirier 1. So I'm kind of like, would it have continued like that in the second round, or would Poirier taken him down and just bullied him? I'm not sure. So I have to see number 4.
Exactly, right? It's crazy because that's exactly what happened with the I mean, how many that happened with UFC 257 with Poirier McGregor? First round, Conor nullified his Dustin's grappling attempts. Then got to the fence, reversed him in the clinch, and was controlling him there. And he was getting better at the exchange of the feet. 10-round Conor, I would have said. But then towards the end, like maybe the third through the second round, Poirier managed to turn the tide and get momentum. And then when he felt that Conor was really hurt, that's when he closed the show. And so, in terms of the dominance of that fight, you would say that was maybe 65% Conor, 35% Dustin. But it was just like the last, that 35 was obviously more brutal because of the accumulation of the kicks. And then I was kind of when I watched it, I was like, when after he's because the kicks were hurting him, then he caught two of them in a row, and then he didn't go in and he was like almost like he was playing with his food. He didn't really put him in pressure against the fence. So then that allowed Poirier to circle back, take the center, and then unload his punches, and that's the sequences that led to the end of the fight. And the one on Saturday, you saw where he went for the guillotine, and it looked like he was in a good position. And I was thinking, like, if his hand position was different, because he did the classic grip, but if his hand position moved more like this, it would have been able to put more pressure on the choke, and then even better if he managed to get his hand fully around, like a Mataliao sort of style, and that would have made it much more difficult. So he would have definitely had to back up from being on the ground to avoid that. But then, so in the heat of the moment, you feel, a guillotine. If I can get Poirier with his own move, that's quite sweet. But they did say they were working on that kind of stuff, and most people would think that was Dustin's best path to victory. But yeah, it's a fight. You know, fights can change drastically over the rounds. We saw that with Chandler versus Oliveira. Completely turned it around in the second, drastically, and then he's the new lightweight champion and possibly the next opponent for Dustin Poirier. In fact, most likely the next opponent. And so, did you watch the O'Malley versus Moutinho? I think it's Moutinho.
Yeah. So O'Malley, I don't have an issue with him as such. I've got an issue with what the UFC are kind of doing with him though. I feel like they're bringing it. It's almost like an old, like a boxer, like they're padding his record a little bit. They're not stepping him up, and he needs to be stepped up. I know that guy was a 2-week replacement. You know, fair enough, it is what it is. But I just thought, you literally brought a human punch to the octagon. And Moutinho was as tough as you got. But I actually agreed with the stoppage.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, I don't need to see Moutinho rendered unconscious for my entertainment to know that's the end of the fight. I thought he took 200. Was it 100?
Obscene.
200?
Yeah. Over 200 punches.
He couldn't miss. He just couldn't miss.
And Moutinho couldn't move his head.
No, I couldn't believe it. He was just straight, and I was like, whoa. And he was lucky in the first. I think it was the end of the first round where he got dropped, and I thought, this is it. It's done. But somehow he managed to get through that. But yeah, O'Malley, I do like him. I do like his style. I like watching him, and he's very technical, and he's a gifted fighter. But I do want to see him in with someone else, with a little bit more caliber that's gonna challenge him a bit more. I'd quite like to see him against Cheeto again in that rematch.
Yeah, I was about to say Cheeto Vera. He was at higher caliber, more experience, and he stopped him. He still doesn't like to say that he lost, but he definitely lost.
He did lose. He definitely lost because he checked the kick. He checked that kick. As much as O'Malley wants to, go and get high and ignore it. Cheeto Vera checked the kick, and his foot. I don't know what happened with it, with the nerve or what, but he did get stopped.
Yeah, those calf kicks as well. That is just damaged. But yeah, and so that was crazy. That I think I got fight of the night.
It was a good fight. It was a good fight.
was great. I was so wanting Matinho to win. I was like, come on, but but yeah, it was a very just stoppage, and where the moment where is like thing is like. Yeah, I don't really want to talk about this here, but Joe Rogan's commentary kind of makes you think that the referees don't know what they're doing when he disagrees with them. But that fight could have been stopped earlier. But then it was the combination with the clean combination which he landed, which is like okay, it was like must have been like 3 or 4. One was an uppercut, and it was just like 3 or 4 unanswered heavy shots. And it's like okay, and it's not just because he didn't fall to the ground doesn't mean it doesn't have to be stopped.
Yeah, it's like you can go back to the Roman times of the gladiators. It's almost like just cheering for blood just for the sake of it. You don't need it, do you?
Yeah.
Like, he was sadly beaten. He wasn't going to do anything in that fight. I could have bet my house that Moutinho wasn't going to do anything to O'Malley in that last round, and I probably would have won. Easy. So it was a bit. Yeah, it was just daft. I don't understand. And like you say, Rogan saying he should have finished on his feet. Why does he need to be a hero? He's already done it.
Exactly.
Took a beating, 2 rounds.
Yeah.
He doesn't need that. You don't need to go out on your shield all the time. It's there's something very bizarre about that, I think, because in boxing that would have been stopped, I think.
Yeah, for sure. But did you notice that O'Malley was getting tired?
He was. Because that constant pressure, and he's on his back foot the whole time, and that was also a problem as well. Why he couldn't stop it. He couldn't actually plant his feet to land the power shots. So he was kind of like popping the jab, popping the cross, and he couldn't quite sit onto them because obviously Moutinho's coming forward. So I don't know whether he maybe should have been a touch braver and just planted his feet and finished the fight. I'm not sure, or he was just
it's a tough one, isn't
didn't
it?
have the energy.
But people like Sean O'Malley don't put themselves in danger for putting themselves in danger's sake. That's not what makes him what he is. He's that kind of sniper, and he's kind of like he tricks you and he lulls you to stay still so he can hit you. And so but then Matinho was just not staying still. It was just constant and then between rounds, he was just like his corner were just like. Go, you can do this, championship, like you can do this, like you championship gas and all that, and then he like collapsed on his back after it was declared a TKO. So it's like, man, glad that's over. He was really like the Terminator.
Those guys can come back to haunt you. I must admit, a 4th and 5th round could have been interesting, like based on O'Malley's engine, but I still couldn't see him losing it because he'd probably just get, and his output would be a lot less, I'd imagine, because he's not stupid. He's a smart fighter.
Yeah.
Well, most of them are these. But I feel that they are trying to mold him into the new McGregor almost. It's like the McGregor model with O'Malley, but they're trying to bring him on a little bit. So that's going to be the next cash cow if Conor calls it quits. But
True.
It's interesting though. I don't know how you'd go in that bantamweight division because we've spoke about it before. There's plenty of guys in there that would be given more than enough to deal with.
Yeah, I think so.
Like Sterling, Jan. Sterling would be interesting just purely for the wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's a hard night for anyone.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Peter Yan and Sterling. I didn't want to say this earlier, but I did notice that Sterling, the footballer Sterling, was a bit of a diver, and we have Sterling, the current bantamweight champion, who
I don't like that in football at all. I don't like the diving.
I hate it.
I thought that maybe it should have been a penalty earlier, and then when this one got given, I thought surely, because I don't really understand how VAR works. I've kind of missed that boat on how it works. I thought surely if he's dived, it's not going to be given.
If it's a clear referee mistake, I think it is. If it's a clear referee mistake, and so then you'll reverse the decision.
Right. But I don't. It was a bit of a. I don't like that really. To be honest, I don't really like diving. But then in the final, we got our comeuppance really, like Cellini or whatever pulled on Sack and nearly took him out of the game. There was a few tackles that the Italians got, and I just thought, well, if we cheated our way in here, then you got to kind of take your licks and be done with it. That's my thoughts on it. I had no complaints when the Italians did that to us. I thought you can't have your cake and eat it. So
yeah, but back to UFC 264, the sly Connor's sly hook into Dustin's gloves, and then to pull him down into up kicks. You ain't cheating, you're not trying.
It was smart. He's not dumb. One thing I want to though is his toughness, because we've both seen Weidman, we've seen Anderson when those really horrible breaks happen and they're on the floor and they're getting air and they're in a lot of pain. Connor's sitting there and he's just abusing Dustin and his wife. He's literally setting up the next fight. I don't know what he's made of, but he's tough, because that break was brutal.
It was.
And he's sitting there and he's just, I don't know if the adrenaline of it maybe, but even then, like, Weidman's not exactly, not a tough guy, and neither Silva. All these guys are gladiators in there, and you've got to respect them for what they do. But Connor, I just couldn't believe he's just sitting there shouting at Dustin, and he's like, I boxed the head off him, and you're like, it's just madness.
Box the bloody ears off him.
Yeah. It was just, I couldn't believe how he was just sitting there after his foot. I thought maybe it's just a sprain, but then obviously you watch it back again and you're like, oh no, he snapped that. Like, and he's sitting there just having a shouting match with everyone. I don't know.
Oh, goodness.
That's cut from different cloth, I think.
Absolutely. Well, it's only a small percentage of the world do that, and I'm quite glad for that, because orthopedics would be raking the money, and even more than they already do. So it's very good. But yeah, it was a good event, and definitely looking forward to the next one. I think there's one, I can't remember who's on the bill this weekend. I think it's Moises and Malkachev, I think it is, doing the UFC fight. They're headlining, so it's going to be
really Prodigy, so that should be interesting.
Yeah, it's been really cool. And so today we're talking about returning to training, and what I wanted to talk to you is because you're very knowledgeable and a good friend of mine, and I just wanted to hear your takes about how did you get into being a personal trainer, and like how are you finding it?
So, well, you know my history of going yo-yoing up and down in weight, and I've always struggled with food intake and gaining weight and things like that. And I know how hard it is to lose it. And I'm quite lucky because I've always had a good sporting background from when I was younger, when I used to play a lot of football. And so I quite like exercise. Well, I love exercise. So for me, I got to a point when I was backpacking around Australia, and I, again, ballooned up in weight. I wasn't exercising. I was just, enjoying the traveling lifestyle and, drinking and eating and just overindulging, really. And we'd kind of settled in Brisbane. And my friend, in his apartment, they had a gym. And he was a real good runner. And I went to they had a punch bag. So he was running on the treadmill, and I went over to the punch bag. And I hit like a 5-punch combination. And I was gassed. And I was like, this is embarrassing. This is ridiculous. How have I gone to this? Because obviously we trained at AMAG all those years ago.
Yeah.
And, that's 12 years now. And boxing's like a massive part of my life, martial arts, as we've just spoke about. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, right, I've got to lose some weight. So I started again losing some weight. And then I thought, I could probably help people do this. And I've always liked the idea of working for myself. Because I've had some pretty poor bosses in the past when I was in the car trade. And I didn't really like how I was spoken to. And I don't ever want to be spoken that way again. Because, I won't go into that. But anyway, so I thought I want to work for myself. And I saw these adverts about be a personal trainer and it was a bit of a chance, really. So I went and did did the course, and Kerry was like, my other half, she was like, you better stick to this because it's a lot of money. If you don't like it, that's a lot of money down the pan. I says, no, I'm going to give it a good go. And I ended up doing the course, and I ended up winning the best trainer for the whole class. Like I got the champion award and stuff like that. So I really like excelled at it. And I just loved it, and I found it, just something different. And I enjoy helping people. I'm quite a people person. And then I went and started at this gym, and then I've just never looked back. Really, I just enjoyed the conversation with the client and helping them, and you can really see when people are struggling with certain things, and because I've got that relatability with a lot of them. I wasn't born a bronze Adonis like a lot of PTs who go in there and they're 5% body fat and look like Arnold. For Susan, who's 35, who's just had 3 kids, how can she relate to that guy? And she's not really going to relate to me either, but at least I can say, well, look, I've been overweight. I know what you're kind of going through. Like, let's start with these steps, and we'll build and take our time, to get there. So I've done quite well on that aspect. And yeah, well, that's 6 years now I've been doing it. So,
wow.
And my style, I've kind of moved away a little bit from more, fat loss training. I went down the kind of powerlifting route, which you've probably seen a lot of, which is squat, bench, and deadlift. So it's a lot of like strength work. And I still kind of kept the boxing up a bit as well. Never stopped, but it just wasn't the focus. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at the moment. It's been a struggle with COVID. Big impact on businesses because obviously they shut everyone down. I know in the UK they shut you guys down a lot longer than what we got, but it's basically just scared a lot of people. So people don't want to be in these enclosed spaces, and which to me is bizarre because the more metabolically healthy you are, the more chance you have of dealing with illness anyway.
Yeah.
So to me, I find it bizarre that they stopped people doing it, and they kept, like Burger King's open and McDonald's open, but they closed gyms. Like, a guy who can't walk up a hill who gets out of breath is going to have a real hard time if he gets COVID compared to, say, me or you who train regularly. We'd be able to deal with it a lot better, unless we're really unlucky genetically somehow. But is what it is. I don't understand it, so. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, so like that's where one of the reasons where wanted to start doing these things, because like everyone is now being tarred with that same brush, certainly in the Western world anyway, where like life is completely slowed and almost in a sense shut down, and so healthy routines and rhythms, what have you, have just been ground to a halt, and people do have to reinvent. And so in terms of like fitness, where you can't go to gyms and you have to do a lot more from the home, and most people's homes aren't really cut out for having a gym in them, and even with equipment and all that, it can be really challenging. So how have you kept yourself? I know like you have equipment and stuff as well, but like, how have you kept yourself healthy and having a healthy rhythm life during the pandemic?
So for myself, because the way I looked at it was like they took everything from me when they locked us down for that 4 months, and I thought, right, I need to focus my energy into something else. And when you saw me, obviously I was quite heavy from all the powerlifting, so I was like, right, I want to do something different. So I really got into rowing and like conditioning work, started bringing the boxing back in, and I just basically put all my energy into training again, but doing things differently, focusing on something different. Because I am one of the lucky ones. I have a home gym that I built because I love exercise. I had it already, done well before the pandemic, so I wasn't in a rush to get equipment and stuff. So yeah, I just turned the negative and just tried to focus my energy into something else. And it went pretty well. Lost a good 10, 12 kilos.
Nice.
So it went pretty good. So it just depends. You kind of have to. Don't get me wrong. I sat there for a few days feeling sorry for myself, and I thought, well, you're not helping anyone here by doing that. You need to kind of pull yourself out of this and do something for myself. So that's what I did. And in terms for clients, that was difficult because I wasn't allowed to train people at the home gym either. That was banned. I would have got fined. I think it was like nearly $13,000, $15,000 if somebody. So it wasn't worth the risk. And the way everyone lived, and where I am, it's quite a big city. There's quite a lot of people here, and it's well spread out. So I had people like on north side, south side, east side. It's a good distance, so trying to get everyone to a park was pretty much impossible. And then obviously have the element of fear at the time because it was very early in the pandemic, so people were very like, oh, don't want to leave the house, which is totally understandable at that time. So I did like Zoom workouts with people. And you had to be really kind of creative, like load up backpacks with tins of food and as weight, and and you'd have like, to make the exercises more difficult, you'd have tempos, so like 3 seconds lowering phase, 1 second up, just to make the exercise a bit more challenging. So say for like a split squat or a lunge, you'd have like a 3 second lowering down and then coming up, just to make it a little bit more harder, so the muscles working that little bit harder, because we didn't have any other way of adding any kind of progressive overload because they were very limited with what they had. So I had to do that with a lot of stuff, like really just try and make workouts interesting. I went on YouTube because obviously my knowledge is good level, but you can't. I'm not a complete exercise library, so I had to go on and do a bit of research and find certain bodyweight exercise and build these kind of programs for people to do at home and find out what they had available. Some had, resistance bands, some had a couple of dumbbells. So yeah, that's pretty much what we had to do. And then eventually the gym's opened, so it's been very slow, very, very slow. So.
Yeah, it's reminding of a thought I had when it first got announced, the lockdowns and stuff got announced in the UK, and Boris, he gets on and he's saying, oh yeah, we're gonna have to stay at home, protect the NHS, and the thought I had was at the end of this, people are going to be really fat, really skinny, or really ripped, and it's just like a thought that came to my mind, and then I've seen like in terms of like the people I meet are mostly church people and a lot of other people as well. A lot of people have put on weight, and there's other people that have maybe if they used to do exercise or whatever, maybe gone down in weight, maybe me slightly, and then also there's people that have completely, like you're saying, have reinvented, have turned this negative into a positive, and made way to do certain things, and even like redefined like how like there's certain things which people may have found important, and then there's other things which they've discovered during the lockdown which are maybe even better for them, but they just maybe needed the distance to be able to evaluate properly, and then to see what working habits and that kind of thing can work better, and I found in different areas where like that's been quite handy in terms of like the home stuff, like you're saying, like I did a bit of research to see what I can do to try and to keep some kind of good exercise and fitness, because as you know me, like I did most of my conditioning work and strength work doing martial arts training, but then with less of that available, I had to do more stuff around body weight stuff, and I even, like when you're talking about putting tins of food in a backpack, I actually have this old school backpack that still exists from my school days, and I filled it with like bottles of water, and so that's like basically like a 10 kilogram rucksack which I put on, and I have like as like a sandbag sort of thing, and that's the only kind of weight I have right now, and I can do like swings and stuff with it as well. And
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
It was different. It was difficult.
But yeah,
That's
so
good though that you adapted.
but yeah, it's just this is one of those things you had to do. But then I can imagine there are some clients who, because like, I don't know if it's like you give them like homework or things to do, but is there any like advice you particularly give them, your clients, over lockdown? Any advice that you give to make them or help them make the most of this time?
Try and keep some form of a routine, but a lot of them had work anyway, so for them it was just a case of they'd get up and obviously it was different. They didn't have the commute, but they were going to work to some extent, so they had that routine. But in terms of exercise, I'd say to them, try and get outside, and because staying inside isn't great for you. I don't know what it is, mental health wise, especially for myself. Like, I like to see the sun. I like to go out and have a walk, and it generally makes me feel better. So I'd say to them, like, get your steps up, because that's exercising without actually really trying, in my opinion. Like,
yeah.
A bit of a walk, and it just keeps, yourself ticking over a little bit more. And then, if you are eating that bit more at home, at least you're doing something, you're walking. Because you're not commuting, your activity levels is going to be way down. Because when you commute to work, you walk to work, you get the bus, you get the train, you get the car, you walk around to the office, you go out for coffee, whatever you're doing, you're a bit more active. Whereas at home, you sit in front of the screen like we're doing now, and you don't move for 8 hours. Your hips are tight. So again, what we touched on earlier in our chat before this, stretching and things, try and keep yourself a bit more mobile as well. Because sitting down 8 hours a day, you're in that locked position where your hips are just tightening up, you're not doing anything. So walking, stretching, some movement was always very much encouraged. Yeah. And then if they were doing the workouts with me, then that's I could see what they were doing. Torture them for that hour or whatever it was. So that was always a good thing to do. But some of them, I'm not gonna lie, some of them went into their shell and that was it for them, and I've not seen them again. That's to be expected. It's kind of part of the business sometimes. It was just a good excuse for them to not exercise, and there are people like that, which I totally get. They just used it as a great reason to, all right, I don't want to go to the gym anyway. This is a great reason not to. They hate exercise. They're not like us, where we love martial arts, we love training. They detest it. For them, it's an absolute chore to go to the gym. And that's where I come in. That's why I have a job really sometimes. But some of them just, they just wanted to throw the towel in, and that was that. Other people were good, and help them through it as much as you could.
Yeah.
Generally just checking in with them, seeing how they are as well. Like, mental health checks always good. Just how you going, blah blah blah. You done this today? Have you done that? How's food going? Are you stuffing your face on crisps and chocolate, or are you eating a bit better and things? So stuff like that was definitely helpful. But yeah, I think everyone found it tough. You guys had it way worse than us. We were out for a long time, and you guys were all locked up, and it was just constant. And I felt sorry for you guys over there.
Yeah, it's like has been one of those things where it's just like a constant, like, when will this be over? But what you're talking about there, like checking up on people, is so key, because like certainly when you get older and when you're an adult, you think you just kind of go through life and you kind of think you're doing the right thing by just just doing what you're doing. But it's those little checks: how you doing? Have you done this? And if you exercise, how's your mind space and all that sort of stuff. And it's kind of like how you see athletes like boxers and MMA fighters, they all have cornermen, and a lot of what they tell them is stuff they already know. But when the pressure's
Yeah.
hit, it's so handy to have those reminders of, okay, have you done this? No, okay, let's get back to doing that, and it can make all the difference. Just people around us to help us think about the things which we should be thinking about, rather than getting distracted or discouraged or even bored. And then they keep us on track so well, and so yeah, it's really cool that you do that as well, and you look after not just their physical shape, but just checking where they are mentally too. It's really cool.
That's something else with the PT stuff. Like, I generally care about my clients as well. It's not a case of just as long as I'm getting paid, I'm all sweet and happy. I do take a genuine interest in the person. I get to know them. A lot of them I've become friends with as well. So when they do leave, at first I used to take it a little bit personally, which is in a way unprofessional, but it's because you get attached to people. Where now I just kind of have to go, okay, that's fine. There's no animosity towards that person. I don't dislike that person. It's just the way of the world with business. But you do get attached to them, and you do like them, and you do try and help them as best you can. And like, I go out of my way, a lot of the times for them, which I think is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's worthwhile, and an extra 10 minutes here, or a chat here, or finding them a bit of information on this, blah blah blah. Just things like that. It's definitely helpful.
Yeah. It's really good, man. It's really cool. Almost makes me want to be a personal trainer as well. But yeah.
It's good. You'd be good with it, because obviously you do your pastor type work, and you're helping people there. You'd be able to do it really well, I'd imagine. As long as you can listen to people, which you do, and help them. It's just the application of the studying and understanding, certain exercises and training regimes and things, but if, I think it's great. It's a tough gig though. It is a tough gig. Like, it's hard to keep clients and keep getting clients and maintain it. That's the only thing, you don't get, because when clients leave, that's me taking a pay cut each time, because it's your own business. So that's the hard part of it. And that can be mentally training. I'm not going to lie. That's the other part of with COVID. It's been tough, because I had a certain level of income, and I was like, okay, this is great. I can do this, and you can plan your life, what you want to do, and house, car, if you want to go on holiday, things like that. But when COVID came, it was like, okay, I've taken a 40% pay cut, which is not ideal, and you have to reorganize and reshuffle things and kind of make things work out and come up with another plan. So that was another challenge as well, which most people won't, unless you've got your own business, like small businesses. If you're employed, probably won't feel that pinch, but the small businesses do, which makes it a little bit tougher at times. You just got to kind of focus on the positives and just keep moving forward as best you can, really.
Yeah, and the focusing on the positives through what you're talking about. A lot of small businesses have been quite challenged in this time, for sure, and even in that challenging time, like saying, like having people around you to help you kind of like refocus your energies again, and through what you're doing as a personal trainer, and through all of us being just related people and knowing people, it helps so much. And to stay active, it's been one of the things which I've helped also with boredom. Like, just staying active just helps so much. But then when you're talking there about the all the stuff in terms of how much personal trainers have to know, like, there is a lot of stuff up there, and it's helpful to have somebody at least in the industry, not in the industry, but like related to the industry, to kind of help you not doing the wrong stuff or taking on too much, because there's personality types out there that just want to just kind of like say, yes, I'm going to get in shape, and then they put all their eggs in that basket, end up injuring themselves, and it's not something that's sustainable. But having somebody in the know to at least glean from and say, oh, okay, if this is about long-term health, then I'm going to commit to a long-term process and to go along with that, and not having any undue expectation or undue pressure, but knowing that it's a long journey for life, and to take that in its stride, I think, is definitely something which people like yourself, and also just people who are familiar with wise training in general can definitely help with that for sure. But yeah, this has been a great conversation. We've been going for about 45 minutes. But is there any closing thoughts you have? Anything that you want to leave the listeners with, or just to end on?
Just like people returning to training, I'd probably touch on. Just what you were saying there about looking at the bigger picture, like the longer run. Everyone coming out of the lockdown, just think about, taking your time. Don't think about where you were. Think about where you're currently at. Don't beat yourself up about it. Certain things have been taken out of your hands. And just go slow to begin with. It won't take long to get back to where you were. It's like when I broke my ankle and stuff with my injury. It pretty much prepared me pretty well for COVID, because I couldn't do anything with my injury, which was, I found, very frustrating. So when the pandemic came and I couldn't do certain things, I was like, okay, well, it's out of my hands. I can't do much. I'll just take my time and do what I can. And I think that's what, especially you guys, is when you've gone back to full contact training and things like that. Take your time with your warm-ups. Do the extra shrimps. Do the extra rolling. Just kind of really slow it down, and don't expect to be doing what you did prior to the lockdown. And that would be one thing I'd be saying to a lot of people in terms of advice for coming back to training. Just slow everything down and focus on the end goal, not where you were. Just to slow it down.
Good stuff. Well, Mike, where can people find you on social media?
What is it, Mike Robinson Strength on Instagram?
You tell me. I know it is, but yeah.
Yeah. At Mike Robinson Strength on Instagram, and I'm pretty sure it's the same on Facebook as well. But Facebook, I'm not as active on it. For some reason, it doesn't seem to share my Instagram stuff, so I need to fix that. So,
you can. Yeah, that's an easy fix.
Yeah, I need to fix it. And you can see all my silly lifting and boxing and whatever on there.
Great, good stuff. Well, again, thank you for joining me, Mike, and we'll definitely do this again for sure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it's been good. Thank you for all joining in, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one.